German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has largely backed the U.S. and Israel, but in Berlin earlier today, he questioned whether they have a clearly defined strategy.
The
United States and Israel have been waging war against Iran for over a week. We share many of their goals. But with each passing day of war, more questions arise. Above all, we're concerned that there is clearly no joint plan on how to bring this war to a swift and convincing end. Germany and Europe have no interest in an endless war. We have no interest in the dissolution of Iran's territorial integrity, statehood, or economic viability.
Well, let's get more now on how Israel is approaching the war with Iran. Caroline Glick is International Affairs Advisor to the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Welcome to the program. Ms. Glick, before we get into what kind of advice you're offering Israel's Prime Minister in this situation, I want to ask you a very basic question. What is Israel's justification for launching attacks on Iran and assassinating many of its top leaders?
Well, Terry, it's great to be on your show, and thank you for that question. I think it's important for people to understand really what the rationale, not only for Israel, but of course for the United States of America as well. So if you just give me a couple of minutes, I'll make it very clear. In 1979, radical Islamists led by Ayatollah Khomeini seized control over Iran in their Islamic Revolution. The first thing that they did, they took U.S. diplomats hostage for 441 days after they took over the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, right? And from then on, they have been committing acts of war and aggression against the United States of America, mass murdering U.S. servicemen, 241 servicemen, most of them Marines at the Marine barracks bombing in 1983. They attacked the U.S. Embassy in Beirut in 1982. They conducted the attack against the towers, the high-rise apartment building that was housing U.S. Air Force personnel in Saudi Arabia in 1996. During the Iraq War, Iranian militias were leading the insurgency against U.S. forces, and they used Iranian-based IEDs, roadside bombs, to attack over 600 U.S. servicemen and women in that war. They tried twice to assassinate President Trump. Israel and the United States have managed to kill the people who were responsible for those efforts to assassinate President Trump over the years. They've also tried to assassinate other senior American officials on U.S. soil, as well as dual U.S. Iranian nationals on U.S. soil in recent years. They have, since 1979, been calling part of their creed for death to America. As for Israel, the United States is considered the great Satan. Israel is considered the little Satan, and they've been waging a war against Israel actively on 7 fronts for the past 2.5 years. And of course, they are seeking, and this is the main rationale for operating now, they have been on the cusp of getting a nuclear weapon for many, many years. Israel stopped them over a period of a decade, slowed them down, but they nearly reached that goal in the summer when Israel and the United States combined for the first time to take out their nuclear installations and their ballistic missile installations. But rather than get the hint, they started rebuilding. And not only were they rebuilding their industrial capacity for their ballistic missiles that are also capable of hitting Europe, even just in this war, they hit Cyprus, which is an EU member state.
Right.
But they also started working very rapidly to move both their ballistic missile installations, their manufacturing capabilities underground under these big mountains that would make them essentially immune to strike. And they were doing the same thing for their nuclear projects, so that if we hadn't struck today, then they would have been able to shower 1,000 ballistic missiles per day on Israel, surrounding countries, as well as on Europe, and they're building intercontinental ballistic missiles to attack the U.S. mainland as well, and using that ballistic missile arsenal as a shield to just sort of traipse across the nuclear threshold, as Steve Witkoff, the U.S. envoy to talks with Iran, has stated in a series of interviews since the end of the talks and the beginning of this operation, I think 9 days ago. He said that the Iranians already have enough highly enriched uranium to be able to have 11 nuclear bombs in just a couple of weeks and another many more within a month. So we
Okay.
had to take care of it now. We acted now.
Thank you. So that was your opportunity, the couple of minutes you're asking for, to explain the rationale in great detail, for which I'm sure our viewers are very grateful. And we're going to talk a little more about the nuclear dimension in a few moments, including the attack you mentioned. Iran says, the previous dash, Iran says your attacks this time are unprovoked, illegal, and illegitimate. And they happened while Iran was negotiating with the U.S. on its nuclear program. Oman's foreign minister was acting as mediator in those negotiations. He said those talks were making good progress. Why did Israel not wait for the outcome of those talks before launching its massive strike with the U.S. on February 28th?
It's another good question. You really, again, Envoy Witkoff made very clear that it's not true that those talks were going well. They were going poorly. Iran was not coming to the table in an effort to solve the nuclear program by ending Iran's nuclear program and ending its continued enrichment of uranium. To the contrary, they said that they have an inalienable right to enrich uranium, which means that they didn't even try to hide the fact that they're looking for a nuclear weapon. Not even try. They refused to move their enriched materials out of the country. They refused to come clean before inspectors on what they had, how much enriched uranium they had. And then he also said to them, the Iranian foreign minister, he made sure that Special Envoy Witkoff and Jared Kushner knew that they had enough fissile material to make 11 nuclear weapons within 2 weeks. So this is not the kind of behavior that somebody undertakes when they're wanting to make a nuclear deal on their program, come clean, and their nuclear aspirations. The Americans took that and the boldness and the brazenness of the Iranian position as an indication that not only was Iran not going to give up their nuclear weapons program, but that they intended to preempt the U.S. and Israel while the United States was still getting its forces into the theater in order to launch the operation, that they were planning to preemptively attack Israel and U.S. personnel in the Middle East with their sizable arsenal of missiles. And we weren't going to allow that to happen.
So you argue that they were not negotiating in good faith.
President Trump said, not at all.
Right. So,
and not surprising.
I just want to take you back a little bit to last June when Israel and the U.S. hit Iran's nuclear facilities. At the time, Israel and the U.S. both told the world that Iran's military and nuclear infrastructure has been severely damaged. President Trump said obliterated. So why did you need to strike again just months later?
Because they were rebuilding it. And not only were they rebuilding it, they had fissionable material. They were planning on moving their infrastructure under mountains that we weren't going to be able to hit in the future. So the only time to hit an enemy like this that is absolutely dead set determined to achieve its goal of death to America and death to Israel, both by raining down massive numbers of ballistic missiles on them, but also by building a nuclear umbrella for themselves.
So let me just interject here with a quick question. Are you suggesting, are you saying that you have indeed now found the physical material and have destroyed it?
I have to just finish the sentence. The point is, as President Trump has said, that an enemy like this, you have to attack them when they're weakest, not when they're strongest. If we had waited, they would have been much stronger. And so the time to act was now, and that's why it happened.
I sense that you had a sense of urgency there, but I just want to, again, revisit the point you made during that, what you just said, that it sounds like you can confirm that you indeed were able to identify where that enriched uranium was and that you have now destroyed it. Is that correct?
No, we haven't destroyed the enriched uranium yet. No, what I was
you haven't found it. You don't know where it is.
I'm not. Put it this way: if we didn't know where it was, I wouldn't tell you, and if we do know where it is, I'm not going to tell you. So it's kind of a question that you don't ask a policymaker. How does that sound? Fair enough?
No, thank you. Fair enough. So let me ask you this then: can you give us any insight, Ms. Glick, into who the first mover was in starting this war? Because there's some confusion about that, uncertainty. Was it Benjamin Netanyahu or was it Donald Trump?
You know, it's something that people can't get their heads around, which is that we're allies and that we're making our decisions together. And the goals that we've set for ourselves are joint goals. And so it's not, Prime Minister Netanyahu is trying to figure out, how to convince the Americans, or the Americans and under President Trump are trying to convince the Israelis that we have to move now. We have these conversations, they're ongoing, they're basically continuous on all different levels, on the military to military level, among our intelligence services, and obviously among our policymakers and decision makers. These are ongoing discussions, and we have them. This just happened. What do you say? When do you think we should go? Should we go? Should we not go? Are they negotiating in good faith or bad faith? These are conversations that we have together, and the decisions, obviously, the leader of all of this is the leader of the free world, Donald Trump, an historic figure. That's, his decisions that he's making are going to be told and retold for thousands of years.
Speaking of leaders, you in another interview last week said that the Iranian leadership has been decapitated, meaning Ali Khamenei and his inner circle. But now his son, Mojtaba Khamenei, has been appointed as his successor. Does that not mean that the old regime lives on and arguably will take an even harder line now?
Well, I mean, I would love to see the actuarial tables on a life insurance policy for Khamenei Jr. That'd be something I'd be interested to look at these days.
Okay, well, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. That was very insightful. We appreciate you joining us here on DW News today. That was Caroline Glick, an international affairs advisor to the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Thank you very much.